When it comes to monsters, the original Clash of the Titans from 1981 has some of the best monsters of all. Best of the beasts. You have a two-headed wolf, giant scorpions, the Medusa, the Kraken, and more. It's loosely based on a combination of stories from Greek mythology. It's one of the greatest heroic adventure flicks, the epitome of the magical fantasy swords and sorcery genre. They should have made a video game about it. All the monsters are stop motion, and that's the main appeal. It was the last feature film to have effects done by the legendary Ray Harryhausen. Afterwards, he retired. Even back in '81, stop motion was beginning to fade away. Keep in mind, Empire Strikes Back was out, so this may be the last true relic of a bygone age. This shows an absolute perfection of the craft, especially the Medusa scene. The whole scene is lit with torches, which reflects on Medusa's body, so every frame of animation the light had to be flickering. It creates a hellish appearance, making Medusa scarier. As a kid, this movie scared the shit out of me. I can't even count how many moments that made me cover my eyes. The plot, like I said, is a combination of stories. The opening scene is about the god Zeus acting out his revenge against the king of Argos, using the Kraken as his weapon of mass destruction. The reason for the revenge is that the king sent Zeus's mortal lover Danae and their demigod son Perseus into the sea in a wooden chest, which is a whole story in itself. The point is, when Zeus gets that mad, he says, "Let loose the Kraken." So the Kraken destroys the city and everyone dies, and that's the beginning of the movie. Next, Zeus takes out his anger on Calibos because he hunted and killed all of his flying horses, so he turns him into a monstrous deformity. Calibos was going to marry the princess Andromeda, but now that he's so hideous, the marriage is basically off. But Calibos' mother is the goddess Thetis, and she helps him out by casting some kind of curse on Andromeda so that her soul sleepwalks out of her body into a cage held by a giant vulture that carries her to Calibos' swampy lair to be given a riddle to ask all her potential suitors in marriage, and if they answer wrong, which they always do, they burn at the stake. Okay, this is not the kind of plot that can be summarized easily. Basically, this whole middle story is about Perseus, now grown up, trying to save Andromeda from Calibos while hanging out with Burgess Meredith and riding a winged horse named Pegasus, who became the TriStar logo. The gods give him some power-ups on the way, a sword, a shield, a helmet that makes him invisible, and a fucking metal owl named Bulbul. Actually, Bulbul comes after Perseus defeats Calibos, so he saves the day and is about to marry Andromeda. With any movie, that would normally sound like the ending. But no, now the real movie starts. Queen Cassiopeia has to comment that Andromeda is more beautiful than the goddess Thetis. She's already pissed off that they chopped off her son's hand, but now this takes it a step too far. She orders that Andromeda be sacrificed to the Kraken in 30 days, so this begins Perseus' final quest to defeat the Kraken and save Andromeda once again. His journey brings him to the Grey Ones, 3 old blind witches who share an eye, and are sisters of the Gorgons, who are sisters of Medusa. He gets them to tell him the only way to kill the Kraken is with Medusa's head because her gaze, even after death, will turn any living being into stone. So his journey takes him to Medusa's lair where he has to sever her head, fight a bunch of scorpions and shit, and finally face the Kraken. He wins. The end. Whew. The reason I went into such plot detail is to bring up an interesting point. I saw the remake recently, and of course I had no desire to see the remake. I mean, come on, Clash of the Titans without stop motion? But I gave it a chance, and you know what? It's not great, but the way they reworked the plot I thought was interesting. They managed to consolidate the overlapping stories so it had a more linear feel. For example, they made the King of Argos and Calibos the same person. That cuts down a lot of time having to explain why Zeus is angry at 2 different people, and Andromeda having to be sacrificed to the Kraken is set up much earlier on, so the whole adventure is based on that instead of all that riddle shit. It's not often when a remake helps me to notice how something in the original could have been improved, but still, you can't beat the charm of the original. Also, gotta mention, Bulbul makes a cameo in the remake, and it's the same Bulbul. With all these plot differences, you might wonder, what about the original Greek stories? Why not just stick to the source material? Well, the thing is, with Greek mythology, the stories don't always translate perfectly to the screen, and they've been retold so many times that they always tend to have slight differences. Sometimes there's no clear original source. In this movie, they invented a lot. Medusa and the Kraken are now titans, which they never were. The Kraken isn't even from Greek mythology, and it's a giant squid. Also, Charon, the skeleton ferryman who takes Perseus and his gang across the river, was usually depicted as a bearded old man, although the skeleton is much more cool. Also, he's supposed to be carrying dead people across the river Styx to Hades, the underworld, not the Medusa's lair. The two-headed dog, if it was meant to be Cerberus, it should have been guarding the gate to Hades, not Medusa. Not to mention, it should have had 3 heads, but I guess that's one less head for Harryhausen to animate, so who can blame him? Perseus usually gets around on sandals with wings, not the horse Pegasus. Also, Pegasus was originally supposed to be born out of Medusa's blood, which they sort of allude to. After Perseus throws the head of Medusa into the sea, Pegasus immediately flies out of the water. Just a little nod. As for Calibos and Bubu, both inventions of the film. Harryhausen said that legends are always retold, so what they were trying to do was combine the best elements that would make the best scenes, sort of like the best of Greek mythology. The short answer is, it's a movie. And a fantastic one. How many good movies can you name from Greek mythology, more specifically that involve Greek monsters? Clash of the Titans and Jason and the Argonauts. Done.